Say a little something ruined my plans, and I had to throw them out. But I still say, yeah, we're still pretty much getting the same gist of things, just not as fun and creative ways I hoped. It may all drop a little more than I intended. What's up, my guys? Lindsay Ale. And well, in a lot of older videos, like I've since deleted, I have kind of entered talking about sort of like the lore behind why it was Agency Roundtable, Agency in Europe, Agency Tales. Yeah, my throat's still a little dry, but that's a little dry. Bit of a headache, but that's good. It's not as bad as it could be these days. Last time we were talking more about parks of childhood. To kind of explore like the lore and the kind of more my thinking where I grew up, because like one of the plans was that we were gonna start off in Valley Forge Park, because like my middle school, like you can see clear into the park from the cafeteria. It's probably more beautiful than looking at the Eiffel Tower at Kings Island. Sorry, Steph. But yeah, not far away was briefly the largest mall in the U.S. with King of Prussia Mall. As when I was younger, they had the plaza and the core separate things, but it's only been like recently in my teen years where they actually put a little bridge connecting them with a lot of like boutique stuff. Also, the Lego store moved in the past year, so last time I went there, it moved over to where their garage is. It used to be near on the first floor near like Modell's. You know how it was near where Sears was, or where Dick's Sporting Goods and the Outback is now. Outback used to be a smaller shopping center a few miles down called Gateway, and I wouldn't say it's like a hangout spot for us. It like really a step or two down there. Like everybody usually like frequents there because you have a smaller grocery store called Trader Joe's, which is owned by Aldi. Fun fact, if you didn't know that. And the Outback used to be on one corner. There used to be a place called Appetites that we would frequent a lot. I definitely know my family did. But like, yeah, and there's a Staples in there, TJ Maxx. There used to be a place called Mexican restaurant called Mesa that was since replaced by a Chipotle. But since that closed, it did inspire something for these actual ancient stories. Because that closure came to be of a benefit for a brief period in one of these stories that gets added. But yeah, this is currently my third residence. You guys never saw my original one that I grew up with where my grandfather lived on the same property in the bigger house, and I was in the smaller house. And the second one was the townhouse, and I still have a lot of my Lego stuff over there. If you remember, like all the way back then when I was doing Lego reviews and Lego Batman Let's Playthroughs, and even back then I did like 2 pilot episodes of Agency Roundtable. But I think I scrapped. Those were like the first things I ever scrapped on the channel, along with some original like Let's Talk series about inventions, and then I later reused that for my music channel, talking about music history. Yeah, like music was like another huge piece to these stories, as well as my mom did cello, so I did that in 3rd grade, with percussion in 4th grade. The choir through middle school and 9th and half 10th, and that's since I got sent to AMA, I pretty much dropped choir. I don't know if I mentioned that, and I just wanted to get this out of the way because I don't know how long it'll take for the TV1 stuff that I've done. Mainly, right now at this point, like only newscast 1 that I really want to post over here. It's a very interesting one. You'll see what I mean. when the time comes. So yeah, for this year, I've been too critical of others lately, and so I kind of need to think back on the people from those years, elementary, middle, yeah, all the way up to high school. So yeah, so being on the spectrum, like in kindergarten, we were with our personal caseload for the morning, and then we had lunch with the second graders before going to having our normal stuff in the afternoon. Even though at least I was separated and did math with her in the afternoon. So like all the rest in elementary, we had 2 recesses, one in the morning, and then the rest coming in the afternoon. But since kindergarten to second grade, I was really independent at the time, and so so I'm down with our SPD. Kept rerunning on Toon Disney and Jetix, even though by then you had Mystic Force, Overdrive. For second grade, I didn't know Mystic Force really existed, even though I did have the Megazord and one of the Generals. And then Overdrive, I definitely know I saw the team up in the past, maybe a few other random episodes along the way, but yeah, they're definitely pushing out their earlier series. Even though that this was kind of pretty much gone by entering high school, there's a lot of interesting stuff outside of that kind of did, and one of those original people I consider part of that unit. He lived in Japan for a few years before coming back. I think he left in first, second grade, my first second grade year, and then he came back maybe his 8th or 9th grade year, something like that. I don't know, but it's interesting on that. And there are other people, I did coach pitch through elementary, so people like David Hobson, Jacob Marcus, I knew them, and they're David actually shared our same birthday, the 23rd, and for the longest time, that's when I posted the original Tail pilot. That's when I was doing the year in review, but decided to do it at the end of the year now, like everybody else, just because I'm not doing the round table anymore. But really, the ideas of these agency stories that I'm talking about really doesn't really solidify until middle school, when I met with Mark and Bryce, and then Thomas moved in for 6th grade. I saw The Adventures of Tintin with him and his fam after he came over to the house. Mark's being a little one that's actually visited my original residence. Steven, one of my mom's friends, he was in that original pilot and something called Free Play Friday, where we played a Mario game that came with my Wii U, and don't really like the games. I've played Smash with a friend Danny. I've mentioned him a few times on my Instagram because I went to his senior party after Sesame Place. So if you hear, yeah, that's what I was mentioning in the Sesame Place vlog. Never mentioned my name, but I mentioned I was going to his senior party after that instead of going to Clemington like I'd originally planned. That was Mark's idea for the name for the lemur. But I also kind of, reeling it back in through time, is that in 3rd grade I wrote a series based off neighbor's dog being super part of the superhero organization, and then sometime later they did a spy theme with the dogs, and then that kind of got thrown into the agency and whole original 7-story arc, which was The Emergency, One Sick Puppy, Christmas, Birthday, Return of the Birds, and then I forget the last 2. But it was a 7-part series, with the first 4 and the final 3 being split into 2 films. And those were very short stories, children's stories, compared to my more novella style with Tragedy in Greece, The Shrieking. The Shrieking is actually the original story based off of Nerds of a Feather. That episode of Phineas and Ferb. A bit, and it's kind of sort of going from, like, you know, geek battle to battle between the middle schools. And there was really, like, a sequel I needed to that before the agency arc actually started. And even a little bit into the agency as well, like, where it originally ended with 2.0, and then you had that bit, and we ended off going to high school, everything normal. But then, over the years, it's kind of changed, where after those two, and then Thomas's introduction into what's called Brothers Forge, is about the opening of Legoland, Florida. Yeah, and so then the story continues with adding new agents, Jay, and then I mentioned James, and on that whole, those two, since they came in reality, I used that along with, since it came out around when I went to Europe, I threw that in along with a main two new story. As soon as I got accepted, a part of this bit that's more like set in high school, which is the Monsters of the Great Rift arc. You have, kind of starts a bit before that with after 2.0 with Pirates, and then you have Dark One Awakens, Brazil's Revenge, because Grozzo was a rival of the Care Bears. He was one of the original villains in Treasure in Greece, along with Mr. Freeze, who created the Hounds of Winter. Treasure in Greece is heavily based off of Sting's If on Winter's Night. Like, a lot of the songs for the album are I use in that film or story. The only one that's really pretty much musical are Tragedy in Greece and East Side Story, which definitely was much more of an earlier story that started in high school, really before the whole Mons, short to the Mons arc really got fleshed out. So that's set in junior year. The initial trailers for Teen Beach Movie, which I didn't see, and I kind of fell off Disney Channel at that point and switched over to Nick and watched Game Shakers. And then later got into Ninja Steel, Thundermans, Henry Danger, Night Squad. And a whole other piece would be like Lord of the Rings and Ninjago. Maybe a little bit of Avatar, which I haven't really seen, but I've just watched random videos on the Avatar universe. But I would say East Side does have a huger piece of coming back locally, as one huge scene, which is tunes are come from, and that's maybe from Turning Away by Celtic Thunder, but retold a tale of like Tragedy in Greece and The Ancients Rise, and then Out the Road, which is completely different, rewritten to talk about more about Tolzone's past, as well as more about the recent past, like the clouds are coming near, it's time for revenge we have sought, we have a job to bring joy, but the banners broke our hearts. The banners being reference to Six Flags. Category 5 on the horizon, we'd be dead if Arrow came back, but after all the stops, I think it's time. Bring a Scofield, memories in your drive, but still a drove of goodness in our hearts. Get your Harley and hit the road. We'll roll and roll and roll, roll and roll before she comes in, which is a reference to Katrina. Kind of like how in the minor song beginning of Frozen, like, beautiful, powerful, dangerous, cold. There's a bit pride, power, loyalty. Then you go red, green, blue, yellow spandex suits, which is a reference to Power Rangers. Then we're strung by the prophecy too from the Silence of the Seas of history, which is kind of rolls back to the old stuff as well with Tragedy in Greece, the Benders, which I basically just talked about a whole bit, where piece of the Tragedy in Greece is a bit of a Charlie and Chocolate Factory parody, is that in that story, at first me and Mark and Bryce become friends, and then we scamper off to Dublin somehow. Very weird. And then they have a submarine ride, like Atlantis Submarine Voyage. I mean, Legacy Deep Sea Adventure at Legoland Windsor, because that was the first one that went around. When I was creating that story, or at least being built at the time, to get belong back in the tragedy set in December 2010. So that's a bit of a, and then lasted up until 2012, 2011. So that's a bit of a plot hole. But yeah, that version doesn't exist because there's no Legoland in Dublin. But the agency's tied to the refrain is, bring your blade, bring your heart, bring your spirit and your soul, bring the gang but non-change, which is a reference to Mons 2 because Ashton and James got captured at the beginning of that film when they're up in the Poconos for, a pride thing. And then they come in, and I'll tell you the next part. Looking up to the rising sun, and the pain in my face, from the shadows to our mistakes. Well, on that I take a bet. When Anna comes out as being trans, I faint in San Marco. And so she says, he fainted in San Marco when I came out. Then you go to the refrain again, and then I think it was can't even like a verse bit. So they go, chugging down buckets, may not a going. Holly's on the mind, he could keep us a going. Down buckets, reference to storm, and obviously may not going, reference to may not be able going to Jazzland. Holly's on their mind, he could keep us a gun because they're biker gang and they got a bunch of Harleys during the storm came in. And then the cops might catch up if we slow down. Guys, it's some of the mistakes they've made. We'll chase you up and track you down, which is reference to Lupin's Power Dream. That's a little off because that's the 2018 season. This is supposed to be set in fall 2016. Giant submerged 20 feet under. That's actually a fact. It was submerged 20 feet under water. Like a volcano, that mountain roar, which is a reference to Here, There, and Back Again, which actually Anna's debut is that Smug comes out of the mountain and then she takes in though she had brief skirmish with another group or whole female group of sort of the equivalent of the lemur at the time, called the Rose, and eventually emerged, and then say last refrain, that I say, here's a hell to the company. If you play it directly to the tune of Out the Road by Gaelic Storm, the ending combines both refrains. So you bring a hat, bring a blade, what about the memories, good and bad, bring the gang, but non-chains, and then let's roll and roll and roll, roll and roll before she comes in. The tune kind of works better like a verse scene in a musical. That's something I've always felt about it. I haven't told the guys. But yeah, and actually the setting of that actual battle scene is based off a pub called Casey's, which I actually didn't go into until December during the Eagles season. Actually, one of my friends from sophomore in Vice they're actually juniors, but one of them, Riley, she works there, and then the other two had stopped by to watch the game. And I'm sure Mr. Trojan can could prove that a bit. John always showed up to his homeroom from the time I had him in Vice till he graduated on that. But I'll say that the science units up at Big C, I can see they're very tight, especially when I compare them to other apartments. Like every Halloween they would do like a whole like team thing. Like one year they did Pac-Man. Big C, I finally met some people that I'd known throughout the years, like Nick Cruikshank. We're gonna talk a bit more about him later on. Carr, Miller. But they've had a lot of interesting people over that time frame. Talking about the guys. Like those Girls Are Rosens, they're mainly based off girls are mainly introduced in middle school. And Margot, she was actually in my elementary. I think she left in 3rd grade because her dad got a job in Abu Dhabi, but then she came back in 5th grade. I believe her dad was still working over there at the time. Her and then Catherine Shade. She finished high school and did Line the Witch in the Wardrobe with me, and Mark was close named Maddie, and she disappeared after 6th grade, but could have been my fault, don't know. Which is Return of the Everbender, which that's the prophecy, is that Anna's destined to be the Everbender and defeat her sister, which comes from Ninjago having Lloyd have to defeat his father. And the thing is that And it starts off with gloves that have to do the fire for her. She's not able to bend from the start like us male agents were able to. Danny James, who's not introduced till Pirates and the Stories in 7th grade. IRL, he has actually becomes an earthbender. But in an east side, he was really supposed to move before 11th grade. So I still kept that in as a plot point that he moves back after his power to go rogue around the events of Tavern Song Battle. So he moves back in time for a little Christmas special. So he's around for a little bit at the end of 2016 after the events of Months 2, but definitely will be more active come the new semester in late January in that story. And you'll see more about 8th grade, specifically the language of wardrobe and what I call a lost vlog next time in June. So yeah, if there really isn't a lot of content to do, like still stuck in and no vlogs, then I might do Williamsburg this year, but I might push it off till either fall 2021 or winter 2022. Time will tell on that. So yeah, this has been Lindsay Gale. Comment, like, subscribe. Struggle very subscribed, and I'll see you next